my screen? Yeah, thumbs up is fine. There we go. So I'm just going to walk through what the plan is throughout the presentation and kind of what the flow of it is going to be. With regards to email marketing, this touches the surface. There is a hell of a lot that you can learn with email marketing, and it is a massive subject. So hopefully this will kind of give you all some great ideas. And then obviously if there's anything else that you wanted to know, we can go into more detail at a later date. So through the agenda today, we're just going to start off with data. So one thing that I think a mistake happens quite a bit is you can dive straight into things without going through the correct process. So we'll go through data first, just briefly, why you should do email marketing, so what the benefits are, reactivating your customers. So I'll give you some ideas on what you can do to reactivate them. Customer retention, I've tagged this on. This is mainly focused around the reactivation, but there's no point in reactivating someone if you haven't got anything in place to keep them. And a bit of a summary at the end. Throughout, I've got, I think it's about 5 or 6 questions. So they'll pop up, I will ask them, and it's just a case of if you guys answer yes to that question, if you can raise your hand, whether it's physically or using the little raise your hands button at the bottom. It's just an idea to get you all involved and see what you currently do with email marketing. So the first question is, do any of you actually send marketing emails currently? Okay, a mix. So that's good. That's a good start. And then do you segment your data for each email, or do you send your emails to your whole list? So do you segment your data? Do you break it down and send it to smaller people? Brill. So that's interesting because I'll go into customer data now. So you not only need the data to contact your customers and have permission to contact them, but your data is your biggest win because you can make your content relevant using that data. So the more data that you have, the better your communications will be. So in terms of this, when it comes to the data, what I'd want you to ask yourselves is, what data do you have and what permissions do you have to contact that customer? Obviously, GDPR was a massive thing a few years ago now, and it is still very much in the limelight. So you do need to make sure that you have got permissions. There are certain ways around it. There are a couple of different options in terms of opt-in, but ideally you want to make sure that these people have said, yes, I want to receive these emails. You can get around it a little bit with people that have bought products and services, but I would recommend, if you've not spoke to them, speak to them and ask them if they would want to receive the emails first before you go and put them into the wider customer journey. Who are your customers? It's another big thing that a lot of people would just assume that their big part of customers is the same person, basically. So what I would suggest is break down your data, look at the key demographics within them. How are they different? One of the really useful ways of doing that is creating user personas. So essentially you make them a real person. So like, for example, in my last job at PDSA, we used to have people called like Pam. And Pam was a lady that was over 60 and she used to live by herself. Her kids had all moved out. She was retired. And we just gave her a bit of a character. We said where she liked to shop, what she would have in a bag. And it just really helps to give you an idea of who that customer is and get really under the skin of it, rather than just think, oh, they're a man or they're a woman. It just gets that deeper level for you. And then you map out the journey from there. So for each user persona, think about how they engage with your company. At what points do you hear from them? At what points would you be able to speak to them? By mapping out that journey, you'll soon become apparent where you can contact them or where you should be contacting them. So it could be as simple as when they come to your website, and if they interact with you there, if you've got their details, you want to contact them to see if they need any help. If they've bought from you, you've got your typical emails like your order confirmations, if it's a product that you're selling. But then off the back of that, are you asking them how they're finding that product? Are you asking for their feedback? So yeah, off the back of it, you should be able to get quite a lot of details. What I would say with a customer journey is start small. Customer journeys can be absolutely massive. So start small and then add to it. So do any of you have any automated emails set up? No? Okay. So, and do any of you send emails regularly, so like once a week? So that's just, it's really good to get to grips with all that kind of thing, because automation is what will really save you time in the long run. And it can be a little bit of a task to set up, but once it's set up, it'll all just run smoothly. So the idea of the customer journey is you're just going to take people through that journey, and it's all going to be automated. They'll go through it as planned, and then you don't have to do anything. You just keep an eye on the results, you tweak, you edit content where needed, you make sure that everyone's happy. But it just gives you a better communication with that customer, and you're keeping that regular contact. So why email marketing? There are a lot of reasons why you should use email marketing, and that's not just coming from me being someone who likes email marketing. So I've kind of pulled out a few. There is a lot of text on these couple of slides. I broke it down into two. But I will just quickly run through them, and then after this as well, we'll share this, and you can actually see all the benefits broken down for yourselves as well. So your message is 45 times more likely to be seen using email compared with Facebook. So obviously on Facebook, you have certain parameters that you're working against, where they will only show your message to so many people within their newsfeed. With email, you're pretty much you're guaranteed, I think it's over 90% of emails that you send will get into the inbox, hopefully more if you've got a good delivery rate. And then out of those, you'll have a huge amount that will actually see your message. It's highly measurable. So it's one thing that I actually really love about email is you can track it. So it's not like some of the other channels where you can't track anything. You can track email right the way through, from sending the email to how they engage with the email, how they then leave the email, and if they come onto your site, you can track all of that. It has a higher ROI. So email is well known for increasing return on investment. It's not always a guaranteed quick win. It's not something that you might see instantly. With email, it's more of a long-term project. The idea is you use email to retain your customers. Just to give you some stats. So in the 2019 email marketing census, they had some positive stats on ROI. So email actually attributed to 19% of the sales, yet only 13% of company marketing was spending on it on average. So it just shows that despite a small spend being on it, it was actually contributing to quite a big chunk of the sales. So if there was more spend in that area, there's a chance that could really grow. 59% of respondents said, this is in the same census, said that marketing emails influence their purchase decision. This can be indirectly or non-directly. We had an instance yesterday, Andy actually brought it up, that having an email from someone can always trigger you to pick up with them. It might not be because of what's in that email, but it might just give them that nudge that, oh, yes, I do need to speak to them. And then they'll get in touch. So it can just be quite a nice trigger, a bit of a reminder there for customers that you're still there, and they're there to talk to you anytime they want. You can deliver personalized and relevant messages. So this is where email can get really clever. You can deliver specific messages to different people. And you don't have to do this by doing hundreds of different emails. If you use the right sort of system, you'll be able to use it where you have it all in one email, but it's all set up so that they will see different sections of that email depending on who they are. So that is, I won't go into this side of it, but that is the dynamic content side. And that is where it can get really, really clever. As I said before, it saves time on admin through automation. So all the time that you spend working on emails, if you've got them all set up, it will save you a lot of time in the long run. It's an easy way to get people involved in your latest event. This is probably one of the good examples that we use email to promote our Aurora Roundtable. More than 60% of companies hosting webinars are B2B. So it's a great place to use email to get those people onto a webinar or an event call that you're having. It improves communication without being too invasive. So this is quite a big one because people don't really see email as being invasive. People don't mind a lot of the time giving their email out. It's the one it's probably the first piece of contact information that people will give out willingly, compared with phone number and address. So it is really less invasive because it's not really in their face. It's just sat in their inbox and they can look at it or they cannot look at it. It's not a case of you're trying to get hold of them on the phone or you post something through their door. 72% of people from the email marketing census said they prefer to receive promotions via email. So that is their preferred channel over social or any other means. I do think there's a place with email marketing. You need to make sure it is aligned with everything else you're doing. So if you send something in an email and you've got something on your website and then you post around it on social, you'll have a much better journey for your customers. It's a great way of promoting case studies or white papers. So 71% of B2B marketers use white papers in content marketing. So it's a great way then for you to actually get that white paper out to customers, clients, suppliers, anyone that you work with that you want to see it. It's a really good way to actually get it out there rather than just expecting them to come on site and read it. Email marketing and SMS go hand in hand. So this is a really big one because SMS, although this isn't about SMS, it is such a good channel because pretty much everyone has their phone. Like I'm pretty sure that most of you now will have your phone within hand's reach if you've not actually just got it directly in front of you. And it is one of the quickest ways to reach people, and it is a really engaging way. Majority of people open SMSs, they'll read them, they'll engage with them. The only issue is you can't track who reads your message on SMS, but the rates of people actually responding to them are really good. So we usually tend to put the two together and maybe prioritize SMS, send anyone that we've got mobile numbers for that we can contact. We might send them a text. For those that we don't, we send them an email. And then if those, we can always follow up to those with an SMS with an email at a later date. Right, so I hope you're all still with me. And I'm not talking too quickly. So customer reactivation. Retaining customers costs between 5 to 25 times less than acquiring a new customer. So I don't think this will be much of a surprise to most of you, but it is a hell of a lot cheaper to keep the customers that you have than get new ones because of the amount of spend you put behind acquisition. So I wanted to start the reactivation. It's just, you need to get under the skin of why your customers become inactive. So it's not a case of, oh, I just want to send them a reactivation email. You need to consider, but why are they not engaging with you? Why are they not active anymore? So some of the examples that it might include is that they were never actually fully engaged to begin with. So this is quite a common one in that consumers can be, it's quite difficult to keep hold of consumers in this market because they've got so much that they can go online and find, and they can easily swap between people. So I think it's just understanding if they were engaged with you in the first place. The way that you would describe inactive customers would vary between all of your businesses. It is entirely dependent on what you do and what you would class as inactive. If you've got a long purchase cycle, for example, if it takes a while to actually go through from starting them as a prospect through to actually them being a customer, then the length of time before they become inactive is going to be longer. So you just need to bear that in mind when you look at the strategies. The other one is their needs have changed. So they might have needed you for something 1 month, but then the next month they don't actually need you. And it's just understanding that, because with those customers, it might not be right necessarily to reactivate them in the same way. If they don't need you, you need to think, well, how can I make them need me? Like what might they need from me in the future? Can I help them with anything else? The content wasn't relevant. So that is probably one of the most common reasons people unsubscribe from emails. They get content that they don't really care about, basically. So it's how you make sure that that content that you're sending out is relevant for the people you're sending it to. So that is really where the user personas come into place. And the inability to change / update preferences. So the best thing I can say is, because you have to have an unsubscribe on all marketing emails, if you have a link in your email going back to your website, if you are remotely trying to resell or basically try and build business from an email, it has to have an unsubscribe button. what I would always suggest is, if possible, build a preference center. Most email things like MailChimp and Campaign Monitor will have this built in as an option for you to add. All it is at the bottom of the email, it'll have a note to say update preferences. People can click on it, and it gives them the opportunity to select which of your emails they want to receive. So rather than have them unsubscribe to all of them, they could just choose what they want, and you still then can maintain contact with them. So when it comes to actually then looking at your reactivation, depending on the size of your pot, I would say if you've got a very small number of clients that you'd be looking to reactivate, then this probably isn't as relevant. But I would say always consider it anyway. You want to look at those that have the most potential first. So when it comes to reactivation, focus on those customers or those people that you've had contact with before that were a previous customer. Maybe they've made quite a recent purchase, or they're quite new to you, that they have a high customer value. So basically, they've got potential to actually spend quite a bit with you. They are the ones that you should prioritize, because they are the ones that will give you the most back in return. So really, you want to get those on board first. The ones with less potential, to be honest, are the ones that are probably less likely to be reactivated. But you can still try, and they're still not the priority, because really you want those high quality customers in your database. This is, I say this quote quite a lot. Well, I have it in pretty much every presentation, but it is really true. I believe that repeat business behavior can be bribed, but loyalty has to be earned. So it can be very easy with a reactivation email just to throw an incentive out there all the time and be like, oh, but if you come back to me, we'll give you 50% off. But that's not always going to work. They might come back to you for one more purchase, but that doesn't mean they're going to keep coming back. So you need to consider how you get them to be loyal rather than just coming back for one more purchase. So key considerations for your reactivation emails. Use them to probe and resolve queries. So if you're sending a reactivation email and you're not entirely sure why people are becoming inactive, ask them. It's really simple, and it's something that a lot of companies do often forget, is actually to use your customers. Ask them what was wrong if they're not coming back or they're not interested anymore. That's what I'm going to. Even if they've lapsed or if they've disappeared completely, you just need to ask them. It sounds really, really simple, but it is something that a lot of time doesn't happen. And I think sometimes people can be quite worried about the responses they might get, but whether they're negative or positive, it might be that they just don't need anything right now, but they don't think of you badly in any way whatsoever. But it's just good to have that understanding, because that understanding will really help you moving forward. And your content needs to differ. So this is one trap that a lot of people will fall into with a reactivation email, is you'll just copy and paste what you send out normally and just change the wording a little bit. Whereas with a reactivation email, you need to get their attention. That content, obviously, that you've been sending out might not have been getting their attention as it is at the moment. So how do you get their attention? This one I will bang on about it all the time. Remember to be bold. The reason you're going to run a reactivation campaign is to determine who wants to hear from you and who doesn't. If someone doesn't want to hear from you, if they stay inactive, remove them from your database. So I think I'll go on to the next point as well. Basically, the idea is you shouldn't be holding on to out of date or inaccurate data anyway. But if you've got someone that really is inactive, you've tried to get in touch with them, it's just not working, just remove them. Tell them you're removing them for that reason, and that if they want to get in touch with you again in the future, they can do. But there's no point keeping them just to maintain a massive customer list and to be able to say that, oh, we've gone up an extra 100 customers this month. You just need to think about it in the long term, that you would rather have a group of customers that are quality leads that you can get in touch with, rather than having those in there that you know aren't going to interact with you again. They're just sat there, they're skewing all of your metrics up. It's just, don't keep them, basically. Another area is that you could send one reactivation email, it might not work. So research from Return Path, which is a big agency which does a lot of research into the email marketing side of things, they found that 45% of people actually respond to subsequent messages. So this is where I go back to customer journeys, and that when you think of email marketing, think of the journey, not just a one-off email. Always think about, well, they'll get this email from me on Friday, but then what? Then what are you going to do with them? It's like, are you kind of going to be enticing them to come back to you, but then you just leave them? It's just how you properly take them on that journey to get them on board. So these are where it gets interesting. I've got some examples to share with you of some reactivation emails. You won't be able to read all the writing, I don't think, on this one. You might be able to see some of it, but they're just really nice in the ways that show it's being quite bold. So a lot of them go around the we really miss you route. So this one's a really nice one from Marketo, which is, again, it's a big business that provides marketing software for companies. And it just says things like, ever since we've been emailing you, basically you're not that interested anymore. You haven't opened any of our emails this year. And then it gives them the option just to say, yes, actually, no, we want to keep the emails coming. If they don't click that button, then they're opted out. They won't get any more emails. BuzzFeed is another one. And then they're not all ones with dog and cat pictures, I promise. This one is, we're wondering, do you still want to get emails from us? It's being quite open and honest, because at the end of the day, that's what you're emailing them about. So just be honest and be really explicit with what you're asking. This one is actually Campaign Monitor. So this is a email marketing service where you can actually create your emails and send them out through it. So this is an email for somebody that has signed up for Campaign Monitor, but then they've not actually sent anything at all. So they want to try and reactivate them, just see if they want to actually use it now they've signed up for it. And it's just really simple, that it just goes into a bit more detail. Almost, do you need any help? We're here for you. Do you need some inspiration? And those messages can really help, because that might be the main reason people haven't started engaging fully with them. It might be that they just don't fully understand what they're doing and they need that little bit of extra help. So Boden obviously is a clothing brand. I just really like the What's with the Cold Shoulder message. It's really on brand for them. And I think it's nice to try and think of something quite quirky that suits you and your company as to what you could use just to stand out a little bit from the crowd. This one is really simple as well. You can say that I miss you too, which means they want to stay opted in, or I need space. Leave me alone for a moment. Don't send me emails. This one's probably my favorite. So Virgin Trains sent this email out, I don't know how long ago, probably several years ago now. But their subject line of this was all seat sales cancelled forever. And it was quite a bold statement to go out there with, but it got a huge engagement. So obviously then when they open the email, it's not really, but we have your attention. So it's quite a funny way of getting in there. So if you've got a company, a brand that this would fit with your tone of voice, that you could be a little bit cheeky, then I would definitely say just go for it and be that bit bolder. At the end of the day, these are customers that aren't engaged with you at the moment, and it's going to take something quite out there really to get them back. So consider anything like this that might just be a little bit off the wall. Think outside the box with things. Habitat do an alternative type of reactivation, which I really liked as well. This is based around people that aren't engaging with their emails. So they might not necessarily have lapsed with buying stuff from them, but they don't like their emails anymore. So they basically say, we've noticed you don't like our emails. Why not follow us on Facebook instead? So that's a really good way of doing it. If you've got quite strong social channels, just get them to follow you on social instead and have them that way. Some people prefer it through social, some prefer email, but it just works really nice. It's a nice little message in there. It's not a sell message. So this is an American company, I think. Oh, Australian, sorry, not American. Bookworld, but it's quite a nice message where they go, hello stranger. This is an example of an incentive. So I will go through kind of a bit of a reactivation journey with you after this slide, just to kind of show you where an incentive might fit in. For some of you, it might fit in at the beginning, but I would really try and push that it would be at least your second reactivation email, not the first. So this one, it's not the prettiest of emails, but it is Stonyfield Organic. And it's a little bit more on brand with the whole rural side of things. And it is really simple again. Yes, I want to stay in touch. No, I don't want your newsletters anymore. And it's just really blunt. You'll see that there's not a lot of text there. It's all very basic, that we couldn't help but notice you don't open our emails anymore. Basically, we don't want to bother you. Do you want your emails? Do you not want your emails? And the same with Hulu, So TV. They actually do quite a nice little header there with "Come TV with us again soon." And it's just those little quirks that will make your email stand out that I do think is really, really important when it comes to reactivation emails. So this is a very basic reactivation journey. So as a very basic point of the journey, this is more based around B2C. But I would say basically you take your inactive customers, you check that their email is valid and that you can actually contact them, and you send them a "we miss you" style email. You could always send an SMS at this stage as well. And that email is very simple. And it's just that "we miss you, we haven't heard from you for a while." Maybe give them a little bit of something new that's happened with you, or just reassure them that you're still here to help if they need anything. If they don't respond to that email, then a week later maybe, or 3 days later, send them a follow-up. And that is a "we miss you" follow-up. It's "we haven't heard from you, we're getting really worried." Just be quite quirky, that we don't want to lose you. Is there anything we can do? You could always put a survey in at that point and ask them for feedback. And again, if you still don't hear from them, at that point is when I put a final notice email, which I call it, in there. And that is the email that you're going to send out that says, we're really sad you still don't love us. So we don't want to keep bothering you. Unless you want to keep receiving the emails, you can click the button below. We will opt you out of our emails. And it's just the moment that you take to say, right, okay, we've lost these customers at the moment. We're just going to put them to one side. They're not engaging with us, and just really blunt about it with them. Because you'll actually find that a lot of customers, when they get that email, will be like, "Oh, actually, no, I want your email still." So it is quite a nice last-ditch attempt at doing it, but at the same time, you're explaining to them what you're going to be doing with their data. At any of those points, if they react, so if they buy, or they just get in touch with you, or they open and click on the emails, you could do a bit of a welcome back email to them and just be really positive, really happy. Really glad to have you back. Here's what's new. Here's some things you might be interested in. And make sure that if you do anything like that, it is stuff that they will actually be interested in, and it's tailored for them. And at that point, they'll go into an active part. Go on, Andy.
I was just going to jump in there because Charlie sent a message just asking about when we'd contact inactive customers, what the sort of pros and cons are versus trying to contact them via email versus a phone survey. I suppose my initial thought on there, it depends on the volume and numbers of people that you're contacting, but I just wondered whether you've got anything to add on that.
Yeah, I definitely think if you've got a huge list, then you wouldn't want to be calling them because it will take you so long. But I also think if customers aren't engaged with you, they're more likely to engage with you over email than they are over the phone, because the phone is a lot more, I wouldn't say personable in a way, it's more, I don't want to say invasive either, but it is more in their face. It is actually getting in touch with them directly and trying to speak to them on the phone. It is very different to an email. An email they can easily ignore if they want to. And I think if a customer is inactive or just not engaged with you, they're not likely to pick up the phone. If you're a small company and you've only got a handful of people, then a phone call might be better depending on the service. So if you have quite a strong relationship with customers, and you know them personally, in that instance, then I always think a phone call works really well. But for the majority of companies, when you're looking at inactive customers and it's people that you don't really know as well on a personable level, and they're just people in your customer base that you contact, an email is one of the best ways to go about it. It just depends what works for you, really, but I would always say email over phone where possible, just because of it being quite invasive. Does that answer the question?
Where's Charlie? Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, thank you very much.
No worries. And then essentially at this point, so you've gone through the reactivation journey, you've got them active again, they then need to fall into customer retention. So what I would say that customer reactivation does not sit by itself. So if you're going to spend time and invest in getting customers reactivated, you need to look at the next stages. So I will only touch briefly on this. The customer retention side of it is probably the biggest bit that can give you a massive customer journey. But increasing retention rates by 5% can increase profits by between 25 to 95%. It is a huge difference just keeping those few amount of customers. So another question for you guys for a show of hands. Have you asked your customers for feedback? So have any of you done feedback surveys? Brill, we've got a few. And have you simply thanked your customers recently? And when I say this, there's no sell involved. You've just thanked them. Okay. So with customer retention, you want to make sure customers understand the value of your product. So retention starts right at the beginning. So it starts as soon as they've engaged with you in any way. The welcome is the start of the retention. Think about other areas where you can contact them to keep contact and kind of just build up that relationship. So milestones, anniversaries, and when I say anniversaries, it's things like the first time that they made contact with you, the first time that they had an order with you. That's quite a nice way to go, oh, you ordered from us 1 year ago today. Happy birthday, happy anniversary rather. And birthday's a nice one as well. If you have people's data around their date of birth, I think a lot of the companies here probably won't. But it's one that works really nicely when you do have that data, just to pop them a little note to say happy birthday. Ask for feedback and use the insights. So as I said earlier, a lot of people just don't ask their customers for feedback. But then you have the other lot of people that might ask for feedback, but then they don't actually do anything with it. So if you're going to ask for feedback, work out what it is you want to do with that feedback when you're creating that survey. What are those questions going to give you in terms of insight to improve things moving forward? And to be honest, it's one of those emails that you can just do and get out there to customers, even if it was before all of this, just to give you some more background on your customers so that you can then set up a really good retention program. Regular newsletters. So a newsletter is something that most companies will send out, and most people expect to get a newsletter. It might be weekly, it might be monthly, it might be quarterly. But what I would say with newsletters is when you're sending it out at the moment, are there any bits of content that you could change for different groups of your customers? So is everything in that newsletter relevant for everyone? What could you do to split them up? Community. So this could be creating a knowledge base or a forum for your customers. It's just another way to try and get your customers to constantly have that engagement with you, keeping you front of mind at all times. Keep customers up to date with what's going on. So a really popular retention email with B2B is announcement emails. So this might be just an update generally of what's going on with your company. I have seen before that roadmaps of a company's plan for the next following year work really well, and they get lots of engagement. If it was in the form of an infographic, so it's quite visual, even better. But it could be you're just announcing new products, or you've had a new website, or you've won an award, or you've had somebody new start with you. Things like that can be a really nice way just to keep in touch, and it just keeps your customers in the loop of what's going on. And don't forget to thank your customers. So This one is a big one for me, which I'll go into loyalty. So with your customer retention, you're going to have customers in there that are good customers. You're going to have those in there which you think are likely to maybe drop off or just fluctuate a little bit in their engagement. But then you will have a part of customers that you would class as your loyal customers. With these, you need to make them feel extra special. At the end of the day, they are the ones that come back to you time and time again. They're the ones that you probably get the most value from. So you really want to make them feel extra special and just give them that little bit extra. And I'm not talking incentives all the time with this either. It's just things like making sure that you send the newsletters with things that they like. At the end of the day, with these customers, you should know them better than any of the others. So you should know more about them. You can include ad hoc promotions or exclusive offers. They might not necessarily be exclusive, but just let them know first and say that we're letting you know that we're going to be having an offer on this product. We wanted to let you know first because you're a loyal customer, and just give them that little bit of a feeling that they're getting it before anyone else. Give tips and advice based on their purchase motivation. So purchase motivation, this is my psychology brain coming out, but it works really well just to understand when you're doing surveys and things, consider trying to understand why people have bought from you. So maybe it was that they needed something, they needed your particular product or service. Maybe it's because they went with you over someone else because of the people behind the company. Just try and understand what it was that was that motivation. And then you can give tips and advice based on that. So if you know that it's because of the people behind the company, just make sure that they keep in the loop about the people and that you just keep treating them, and almost you're a bit personable in your emails, and you might direct an email to them from somebody within the business that they might have had engagement with, just so it seems a bit more personable for them. Ask to write a review. So this is a really common one, and it's really useful if you want to boost your reviews. You can do it across social as well. But it's just a really simple email to those that are loyal customers. You pretty much guaranteed to get a positive review. Send them an email just asking if they wouldn't mind taking a few minutes just to write your review, whether it's on Facebook or Google or things like Trustpilot, anything like that. So we're pretty much at the end so that you can all breathe. The summary of it all basically is to get your ducks in a row first. So just try not to dive straight into just, right, I'm going to build this email and we're going to send it out straight away. Have a think about it first and just plot out that journey a little bit first. It doesn't have to be fully comprehensive. It doesn't have to include every single potential touch point that you have with that customer, but just make sure that you are taking them through a bit of a journey. Bide yourself a little bit of time. Consider the wider customer journey, so not just a one-off email. Make it personable. So anything that you can do in that email to make it personal. So simple things like including first name is very common, to actually just include their name. But if you've got any other details like what they've ordered from you before or what happened, just try and put that information in. If you've got that in your database of customers, then you'll be able to get it into an email. So whenever you're collecting data or sorting your customer list moving forward, just think about what benefits additional data might help for you. You might not have every customer might not have given you every single bit of data, but you just have a fallback in place. So for example, if you haven't got someone's first name in an email system, you can usually just pull a fallback in, just like customer, or just have it blank and so it just says hi. It's entirely up to you, but it's just making sure that if you can collect as much data as you can, then you can make it really personable. So it's not really a case of you want to collect all this data to just have more information about them and just use, you want to actually use that data for their good, really, because you're going to send them more relevant and more relevant content because of that data that you've got. Your customers are your best asset for feedback. So yeah, really big one. Make sure you just ask your customers. If you ever want any feedback on any of your products, any of your services, use your customers, and you can just send them a really simple survey that you've done in SurveyMonkey or something like that, and just send it in an email. If you're sending a feedback survey, an incentive does work really well, even if it's just like, if you do this survey, you'll get a voucher to use with us, or and complete our survey to enter a competition to be in with a chance of winning a £50 Amazon voucher. Those things really work well. So you'd be surprised how many people will just take time out to do a few minutes on a survey with a chance to win a voucher. Where you can automate. So this is, I wouldn't say try and jump to automation if you don't currently do any email really. But if you are going to be looking at what we call transactional emails, so order confirmations, welcome emails, just off the back of someone's behaviour, then I would always try and suggest that those are set up automatically, instantly, just because if someone places an order with you, for example, you want to have an email to them pretty much straight away. So if you go online and order anything, you don't have to wait a day to get an order confirmation. We all know that you get that order confirmation through usually within minutes of it going through. So that is what is expected from customers now. And just don't be hung up on increasing customer list. If your customer list isn't growing, unless you're actively trying to grow it and actively trying to promote people to sign up to your emails, really don't worry about it. You should be regularly cleaning up your list anyway. So it's going to fluctuate. If you're starting off, then you should expect your customer list to grow. But just don't worry if some months it doesn't grow because you've taken data out of it that's just no good for you anymore, and then you build it back up again. So it's just the idea of not using that as kind of your key metric. If you're going to look at metrics for email marketing, look at the open rates, the click rates, the conversion rates, not the size of the list. So that's it. Are there any more questions?
Good stuff. Thank you very much, Liz. Hopefully that was a really comprehensive overview for you all on email marketing, and just a couple of key points there that I think apply to wider business, not just email. The two things that I wrote down here is, when was the last time you asked your customers or clients for feedback on what you do and what you can do better, and then acting on that? And when was the last time that you simply said thank you to your customers? Very important. I think particularly at these challenging times that we're in, people are working with people that they trust and have that strong relationship with. So what are you doing to make sure that you keep that relationship strong with your customers and your clients? So we will go straight into questions for the next sort of 5-10 minutes. I noticed, Richard, you've dropped a note, so whether you want to just raise that to the wider group, and just as people are asking questions, just if you could just say your name and the company that you're representing, and obviously just to make sure that you're not on mute when you try and ask your question. So Richard, do you want to kick things off?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
You hear me okay? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Okay. No, it's just a quick one, really. I know we're talking about encouraging your clients to leave a review for you, whether that might be on Google or LinkedIn or wherever. One thing I find quite useful is that sometimes, without necessarily forcing them down this route, I often draft something for them. It's not necessarily, and I say to them they can put what they like, but if I draft something for them, they'll typically save them a bit of time.
Yeah, I think if you go about it the right way, like you say, if you're doing it as a bit of a this as an example, and not saying post this review for us, then that works really well. You can also include current reviews that you've got, so you could say that here's what other people have said, and just give them examples, because some people might copy and paste and just tweak it as well. But yeah, it can be a really good way just to give them an example.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, it's just that the thing I've found over the years is that people, they'll say, oh, absolutely, I'll do that for you. But they perceive it's going to take them a little bit of time to do, even though it's only 5 minutes to them to do. So I just think the more time that you save them, literally they feel they're saving time, the better, really. But you're absolutely right. It's got to be done in the right way, and I think you have to have the right relationship with them to suggest the review.
Yeah, you don't want to send an email to your whole customer list asking for a review, because you could be inviting a lot of trouble. So it's just picking those loyal customers, the ones that you know are going to give you a positive one. And
hopefully you've all enjoyed this morning. So if you want to drop us a Google review afterwards, then it'd be much appreciated.
I've just seen, Graham, you've got a question about a white paper.
Oh, hello. Yeah, it was just a question. What exactly did you mean by it, Liz? Is it just a discussion document, or something new, or what do you actually mean by that?
So a white paper is more of an official document that maybe a business, or it's quite common in the vet world, for example. It's basically a nice big document around research, and it can be anything behind a product, for example, of how that product was made and the actual detail of the research methods that went into that product. So it's just a more official document. I'd say it's probably a step up from a case study, really, is probably the best way to look at it. A case study is probably your top level idea of it, but your white paper will go into more detail. It's more of an academical piece.
Oh, thank you.
No worries.
And I know, Nadia, at Platts, you're sort of looking at your email marketing strategy at the minute. Have you got anything that you've either want to bring up in the discussion following the presentation, or any questions you've got for Liz?
No questions, really. I've made some notes on sort of the retention, so if we can look at who our loyal customers are and put some more stuff in place, and sometimes they're the ones that get overlooked, aren't they, which shouldn't be the case, but where can we go on that?
Yeah, you spend all of that time trying to get customers that once were customers and haven't bought from you for a while, trying to get them back, and forget to just say thank you and reward those guys that have been buying from you week or month after month. I think it's the age-old thing with the utilities market, where they give all these great discounts for you to switch to them, and they forget to just give a decent price to those guys that have been using them for years. So that's a really good point.
Yeah, that's why I do this.
Yeah. Lou, I know email's quite new to you guys, and it's something that you're looking at probably doing more as the world changes. I just wondered whether you got anything that you'd like to add, or any questions for Liz.
No, I find it really useful. Thanks, Liz. Whilst we're going to be new to email marketing, I'm not new to marketing, and I probably was studying marketing even before your mother thought about you. So
I'm older than I look, don't worry.
Well, technology is new and different. Actually, the thought process, we always called it transactional and strategic customers. Who's just going to buy from you because you're cheap today? And who actually can you rely on in the future? And I think that's what you were talking about, really. Yeah. Our business, for those that you don't know, is rather different than a transactional or a customer business. We are rural chartered surveyors and rural estate agents. So on the estate agency side, we have transactional customers pretty much, because you tend to buy a house and then you don't buy another one for quite a long time. In the rural sector, of course, you've got people selling buildings and land, so they are more strategic. But the bulk of our business is professional work, and that is very much looking at the strategic customers. And what we're trying to do now is engage with the younger generation, who, as you rightly say, are engaging in lots of different ways than we would have done. So this is going to be quite a journey for me, hopefully with my hand held very firmly by Hills Green, because I can use my phone and I can use my email, and it about stops there. So yeah, as usual with these things, I think you've left me with more questions than answers, but that's a good thing. It's always good to think, what is it that I don't know about this?
Good. So, we'll catch up with us offline, and we'll try and hold your hand through it.
I'm absolutely positive that you'll hold my hand.
Good. Well,
really good.
Joe, you've just got a question about offer codes on emails.
Hi. Yeah. So I sent an offer code email last week to some of my clients with a spring offer with discount off prints. I've had a few replies saying that people are going to take up the offer, but they haven't placed an order yet. Do I send them another email with like a time limit saying that offer will run out this weekend, or how do I get them to?
Yeah, so I think, did you mention a time in the first email? So like, did you say?
No, I just basically said a spring offer.
Okay.
So I got some really good feedback, and I got some really good replies saying that people are going to take that offer up. But a few have, but I've still got a few that are still, not yet.
You can follow up with them again. So with emails as well, follow up, however, like 7 days later or anything like that, if they've not engaged with it, and just say that the spring offer ends on this date, and just add that urgency in there.
Okay.
It's always worth putting it in the first email as well, but just less urgent, just as like a small expiry date almost. But because you've said spring, you can definitely get away with actually saying spring ends now, but just give them plenty of notice.
Yeah.
Another way of doing it as well, if you've got people that you've sent the email to and they've not opened it, resend to those. So resend to non-openers as well. There's no harm in sending it to the same people again. If they've not opened, just change the subject line. Because it can be the subject line that might get those people to open it this time round.
Okay, brilliant. And is like MailChimp, is that the best form of that for that kind of stuff?
MailChimp is a basic platform, but for the majority of smaller businesses, MailChimp is absolutely fine. There's likes of MailChimp and Campaign Monitor are very similar, so they can do similar things for you. I would say if anyone's got a CRM system, see what you can do within that, so it's all together. I know, Nadia, you guys have app CRM. If you were wanting to do really in-depth email marketing to the extreme, to the likes of the big companies out there, then that's where the heavy investment would come with software companies. So, for example, the first marketing agency I worked at was called Redeye. So Redeye actually build their own email software, and it is very comprehensive, and they house your whole database. But that is purely large company, because that's a big investment. So for the likes of you guys, if you're just building your email marketing up, MailChimp, Campaign Monitor, those kind of platforms are absolutely fine.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Just before we wrap up, anybody else got any final questions that they'd like to ask Liz? Shout or wave? No? All good. Right. Well, again, thank you very much for your time this morning. It's great to have your continued support, and nice to have a bit of a discussion at the end. We have recorded this, so we will put it up on our blog later if you want to go back and rewatch the presentation, or we could send the slides over as well to you. We also send just a link to get our own feedback, so just on what you've liked and probably not liked, or what we could do better on these sorts of things in the future. As I mentioned last time, we're going to try and do these once a month while we're in this current lockdown situation. So if there's anybody with any particular topics or something that they would like to know more of when it comes to